Do you want to unlock the secret to generating more power and hitting the ball farther? It all starts from a place that you probably don't think about enough: the ground. Stick with me here as we go through 3 proven techniques to hit explosive drives and unlock your game. I'm Chris, the founder and CEO of P4S Golf, where we help golfers move better, hit the ball farther, and play longer. Did you know the secret behind long, consistent drives starts with how you use the ground? Ground reaction forces are one of the most overlooked ways to produce more power. In this video, we'll explore 3 techniques to help you harness more ground force to create more distance. The first technique that is critical to producing maximal ground reaction forces is weight shift. Now, we see golfers who struggle with weight shift do so for a number of reasons. It could be because of injury, it could be because of a misunderstanding of what you're trying to do in your golf swing. It could just be that you're new to the game and not really sure what it's supposed to feel like. Now, weight shift, there are 2 parts to it. There's a, basically I would say a preamble, and then there's the actual climax of where actually the ground reaction forces are created. So the preamble is your takeaway. So on your backswing, there's going to be a weight shift to your trail side. So for a right-handed player, that's to your right side. For a left-handed player, that's to your left. Now, that load allows you to load that trail side, because now what needs to happen as you get to the top of your backswing and start your transition, there needs to be a horizontal ground force push off of that trail side towards your lead side. And this needs to happen before that downswing begins. Now, there are lots of training tools and training aids out there, like the weight shift board is an awesome tool that you can use. There are simple drills like a stomp drill that also will help you get the feel of the weight shift and when to do it. But if you do not weight shift, you will not maximize your horizontal ground reaction forces, and likely it will lead to delayed use of ground reaction forces through impact. Because the first ground reaction force that needs to move, just like when we talk about body sequence, your hips need to move first. When it comes to ground reaction forces, your horizontal force needs to move first. So that drive off of your trail side to your lead leg sets you up for the toe heel and the vertical forces that come next. Now, the second technique is the hips first movement. Believe it or not, we see golfers who actually will weight shift, but then not move with their hips first. It is possible. So the key with the weight shift, like I mentioned in the first technique that we chatted about, is that horizontal shift. What needs to go with that horizontal shift is the hip. A lot of times instructors will talk about a hip bump towards the target, as well as, that's more of a lateral move, but as the toe heel forces start to occur, that's your kind of rotational forces, that's where that lead hip will start to open up and clear. That needs to be the first movement. If you're looking at your swing on video camera, that needs to be the first movement that we see. If we see the upper body moving first, the arms moving first, the club moving first, all of those mean that you are not doing a hip first movement. And when we talk about the techniques that optimize ground reaction forces, or give us feedback if you're optimizing those ground reaction forces, the weight shift and the hip first movement are the 2 critical ones that we need to see at the start. Now, if you struggle with this, there's lots of drills that you can do, particularly medicine balls and cable rotations or chops or punches. There's lots of different drills that you can do where you're truly focused on that hips initiating the sequence, and then kind of the upper body and the arms following. So those would be called movement-specific drills. If we're talking about golf-specific drills, remember sport-specific training is when you have an actual club in your hand. Right, sport, you can do hip first drills while trying to hit a golf ball. Sometimes golf instructors will have you do this while coupled with a weight shift board or a stomp drill, or there's lots of other ones that are out there. But just to recap these first 2 techniques, basically the weight shift is the first thing that needs to occur, and that needs to occur at the second that the transition starts. And great players actually start it before the club starts transitioning back down in the downswing. Hip first movement, the earlier we can start that as well, gives us more time to create the third technique, which we're going to talk about in a second, but then also it gives the club more time to build that energy that will eventually be released through impact to optimize clubhead speed. All right, I alluded to it. The third technique is the key one here. This is called X Factor stretch. Now, a lot of you have probably heard of X Factor, and so when we talk about it statically, if my hips are at 0, they're not rotated at all, but I turned my shoulders let's say 60 degrees, I'd have an X factor of 60 degrees because my shoulders are turned 60 degrees more so than my hips, right? 60 minus 0 is 60. What X factor stretch is as you get to the top of your backswing, right? You've weight shifted to your trail side. You've now started your weight shift to your lead side, right? That was the first step that we wanted to see that horizontal force optimized. Now you're going to actually apply a negative force horizontally on your lead leg along with toe heels. That's what allows you to start to clear that hip and that hip first movement. Now what we want to do is if we're having hip first movement and that upper body is able to stay backwards, if I was at 0 and 60 and my hips start to open to maybe 10 degrees, well, now I've added 10 degrees of stretch because now I'm still at 60 degrees on the shoulders. I've opened up 10 degrees the other way in the hips, so I've actually added 10 degrees. That 10 degrees of stretch is called the X factor stretch. I've actually increased the separation of my upper body and my lower body. And this is typically when we're starting to see those vertical forces start to be applied, is at the point that this technique is occurring, which is what you can see in like if you're videoing your golf swing, like traditionally with a video camera or your phone or whatever it may be. So these are the precursors to ultimately what ends up having to happen. And I'm going to throw this in here as a bonus. That vertical ground force is the one that ultimately is directly causationally related to clubhead speed. Now, asterisk here, assuming you apply it at the right time. If you apply maximal vertical force after you've already hit the golf ball, your swing speed is going to suck. If you can apply all of these before your arm gets back down to P5, back down to left, lead arm parallel before coming down through impact, if you can do all of these things before then, you will surely be optimizing the amount of force that you can produce that actually can be used in your downswing to ultimately do what we care about, which is why you've watched this long, to optimize your clubhead speed. So just to recap, first technique that we want to make sure you're doing is the weight shift to your lead side. You can't do that unless you weight shift to your trail side at the start. Second technique is we got to get that hip first movement, not the arms or the club or the upper body. Third is we got to get that X factor stretch, so that lower body that kind of starts as that hip first movement. So now you have your horizontal forces and your toe heel forces. That leads into the bonus fourth technique, which is vertical drive, which one of my favorite drills for that is you can actually preset a dipped lead leg, and basically, and then as you swing, you have to push up off of that leg to let the club come through. Because if you don't, your club's going to hit the ground, right? So it exaggerates that feel of driving up and off that lead leg. If you ever watched a world long drive competition, they actually looks like they jump up off the ground, off their lead leg. It's because they're applying ridiculous amounts of negative horizontal force, meaning away from their target in their lead leg, crazy toe heel forces on that lead leg, and crazy vertical forces that they actually come off and it looks like they jump up and spin out as they swing the club head through. So those are the big four techniques. We promised you 3, I gave you 4. Hopefully you find that super helpful. So when you apply the proper sequences, that's going to set you up for the optimal clubhead speeds. Now there's 2 other things that you can do that I didn't talk about. Number 1 is making sure that you're optimized with your feet to the ground, so that's wearing the proper footwear. Particularly having spikes into the ground versus casual shoes immediately is going to increase the amount of ground reaction force you're able to create. And the big one is you got to make sure that you have the actual rotational mobility in your lead side and your trail side to actually get through the golf ball. Cool fact, recent study, if you don't have combined 100 degrees of rotation to your trail side and your trail hip and in your torso, meaning maybe you go 40 degrees in your hip and 60 degrees in your torso, if you don't have that, you are 1.5 times less likely to swing over 100 miles an hour. So take the home assessment because it takes all of that question or uncertainty out of the air for you, and make sure that you have the optimal mobility. You want to make sure you obviously have the right footwear, and then you incorporate these 4 techniques. You are sure to swing the fastest you can in a safe way so that you can play this game for as long as possible. And if you want to learn more, click on the video wherever it is around my head where we actually talked about the difference in clubhead speed on a stable versus an unstable surface. We tested it on force plates. Super cool. Go check it out.